See, I don't know what you're going through. I don't know what you're facing, but I know this. You're not here by accident. You're not struggling by accident. And that pain, that challenge, that uncertainty, it's not punishment, it's preparation. Your struggles are not punishment, they are preparation. Too often when life hits us with adversity, our first instinct is to ask, why me? We start believing that the obstacles we face are some kind of punishment, that we've done something wrong, that maybe God has forgotten about us. But what if I told you that the very thing you see as a setback is actually setting you up for something greater? What if the pain you're experiencing right now is actually proof that God is working, shaping, and preparing you for what's ahead? Think about an athlete training for the biggest game of their life. They don't just show up on game day and expect to perform at the highest level. They go through grueling workouts, exhausting drills, and endless hours of preparation. Their body aches, their mind is pushed to the limit, and there are days when they don't feel like continuing. But every drop of sweat, every sore muscle, every moment of struggle is preparing them for the moment they'll step onto that field. Without that process, they wouldn't be ready when their time comes. Life works the same way. God sees the battles you're about to face, the opportunities that are ahead, and the purpose He's placed inside you. But He also knows that without preparation, you won't be ready to step into those moments. So He allows you to go through trials, not because He wants to see you suffer, but because He wants to see you succeed. He's not trying to break you, He's trying to build you. When you're going through something difficult, it's easy to get discouraged. It's easy to feel like the struggle is pointless. But look at the greats. Whether it's in sports, business, or faith, every person who has ever achieved something significant had to endure a season of preparation. Joseph was given a dream that he would one day rule, but before he reached the palace, he was betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, and thrown into prison. If he had given up in the struggle, he never would have reached his destiny. David was anointed as king, but before he ever sat on the throne, he was running for his life, hiding in caves and facing enemies far stronger than him. If he had seen those struggles as punishment, he might have lost faith. But instead, he understood that every battle was preparing him for his moment. And then there's Jesus, the ultimate example of preparation. He didn't go straight to the cross. He spent years being tested, facing trials, enduring opposition. Why? Because God was preparing him for the moment that would change everything. So if you're struggling, if life feels heavy, if you're wondering why it's so hard, remember this. It's not punishment, it's preparation. God is building something in you that you can't even see yet. Stay faithful, keep pushing, and trust that when the time is right, everything you've been through will make sense. Pressure produces greatness. Nobody becomes strong by staying in comfort. Nobody reaches their full potential without being tested. When you look at the most successful, resilient, and powerful people in the world, they didn't get there because life was easy for them. They got there because they went through things that forced them to grow. They endured pressure that could have broken them, but instead it built them. Think about how diamonds are made. A diamond doesn't start off shining. It begins as a simple piece of coal, something ordinary, something that most people wouldn't look twice at. But when that coal is put under intense pressure and heat, something incredible happens. The same coal that once looked worthless transforms into one of the most valuable substances on earth. It doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't happen without struggle. The pressure is what brings out its true potential. Now look at your own life, the struggles you're facing, the obstacles in your path, the moments where you feel like you're being stretched beyond what you can handle. What if those aren't there to destroy you, but to develop you? What if the pain you're feeling right now is God's way of shaping you into something greater than you ever imagined? The problem is most people run from pressure. Most people quit when things get hard. They pray for success, but the moment they feel the weight of the process, they start doubting, complaining, and looking for a way out. But you can't pray for greatness and then reject the process that creates it. Look at some of the greatest athletes in the world. They don't become champions by staying in their comfort zone. They train harder than everyone else. They push past limits that most people would never even try to reach. When they feel exhausted, they keep going. When their body screams for rest, they put in extra reps. They embrace the pain because they understand that the pressure is making them stronger. The same principle applies to life. If you want to reach your potential, you have to be willing to endure the process. David didn't defeat Goliath because he was lucky. He defeated Goliath because he had already spent years battling lions and bears in the fields while tending sheep. That pressure, that training prepared him for the moment that changed his life. If he had avoided those smaller battles, he wouldn't have been ready for the big one. So the next time you feel like life is pressing down on you, the next time you feel like the weight is too much to carry, remind yourself this pressure is producing something in you. You may not see it yet, but every challenge is strengthening you, every hardship is molding you, and every struggle is preparing you for the moment when you'll step into the greatness you were created for. Don't run from the pressure, lean into it. Because the pressure is making you unstoppable. Don't quit in the process. One of the biggest mistakes people make is giving up too soon. They start with excitement, full of passion and energy. But the moment things get hard, they begin to question everything. They doubt themselves, they doubt the journey, and sometimes they even doubt God. But what if the breakthrough you've been praying for is just on the other side of the struggle you're facing right now? What if the very thing you see as an obstacle is actually the doorway to your next level? The problem isn't that people don't have the ability to succeed. It's that most people don't have the patience to endure the process. They want results without resistance. They want the reward without the work. But life doesn't work like that. God doesn't operate like that. He's not just interested in giving you what you want. He's interested in making sure you're ready for it when you get there, and that's why the process is so important. The process is where you grow. The process is where your faith is tested. The process is where you become the person you need to be for the blessing you're praying for. Think about a seed. When you plant a seed in the ground, you don't see anything happen at first. Days go by, weeks go by, and it looks like nothing is changing. But beneath the surface, the seed is breaking, expanding, and taking root. And if you dig it up too soon because you don't see progress, you'll kill something that was in the process of growing. Too many people do that in life. They stop too soon. They let frustration talk them out of their destiny. They let impatience make them walk away from what God is preparing for them. Look at Joseph. He had a vision of greatness, but before he could step into that reality, he had to go through years of betrayal, hardship, and waiting. If he had quit in the prison, if he had lost faith in the process, he never would have made it to the palace. Look at Moses. He was called to lead his people to freedom, but the process took 40 years in the wilderness. If he had quit when it got hard, when people doubted him, when it seemed like nothing was changing, the story would have been different. Your process may not look like theirs, but one thing is certain, there will be challenges. There will be moments when you feel like giving up. But if you walk away now, you may never see what was on the other side of your struggle. If you quit too soon, you may never experience the fullness of what God has been preparing you for. So don't stop. Don't let frustration or fear take you out of the process. Keep pushing, keep believing, because when the time is right, you're going to step into everything that's meant for you, and when that day comes, you'll realize that every struggle was worth it. Every great person in the Bible had to go through something first. No one who accomplished great things in God's plan got there without facing trials, setbacks, and seasons of preparation. We love to talk about the victories, the moments of breakthrough, and the success stories, but what we often forget is that before the glory, there was a struggle. Before the promise, there was a process. Look at Joseph. He had a dream that one day he would be in a position of power, but before that dream became a reality, he was betrayed by his own brothers, thrown into a pit, sold into slavery, and falsely accused of a crime he didn't commit. For years, it looked like his life was moving in the opposite direction of his purpose, but what Joseph didn't realize at the time was that every trial he faced was preparing him for the palace. If he hadn't been sold into slavery, he wouldn't have ended up in Potiphar's house. If he hadn't been falsely accused, he wouldn't have gone to prison. And if he hadn't been in prison, he wouldn't have met the cupbearer who eventually brought him before Pharaoh. What looked like setbacks were actually stepping stones. Then there's David. He was anointed king as a young boy, but he didn't walk into the palace the next day. Instead, he went back to tending sheep. And even after he defeated Goliath, he spent years running for his life from King Saul, hiding in caves and facing rejection. But every battle, every hardship, every delay was preparing him to be the king God had called him to be. The time he spent in the wilderness wasn't wasted. It was where he developed the strength, wisdom, and leadership that he would need when he finally sat on the throne. And of course, there's Jesus. The Son of God didn't come into the world and immediately start performing miracles. He spent 30 years in preparation before stepping into his public ministry. And even then, he faced opposition, rejection, betrayal, and ultimately the cross. But without the suffering, there would be no salvation. Without the cross, there would be no resurrection. The pain was part of the purpose. So if you're facing challenges right now, if life feels unfair, if you feel like God has given you a promise, but everything seems to be going in the wrong direction, remember this: you're not alone. You're in good company. Every person that God used in a mighty way had to go through something first. Their trials didn't disqualify them, they prepared them. Don't despise the process. Don't resent the struggle, because what you're going through isn't the end of your story. It's just a chapter. And when you finally step into the purpose God has for you, you'll look back and realize that every battle, every hardship, and every delay was necessary to get you where you were meant to be. God is preparing you just like he prepared them. Trusting God when he says no is not always easy. It requires faith, patience, and a willingness to surrender our own plans for his greater purpose. In moments of disappointment, it can feel like we are losing something valuable, but in reality, we are being guided towards something even better. Learning to trust God in these moments is the key to turning tragedy into triumph. Instead of seeing his no as rejection, we must see it as divine redirection. God never takes away without a purpose, and when we place our trust in him, we can rest assured that he is leading us toward a greater yes. One of the most difficult aspects of faith is accepting that God's ways are higher than ours. Isaiah 55:8-9 reminds us, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." This means that even when we don't understand his plans, we can trust that he is working everything for our good. God sees the entire picture, past, present, and future, while we see only a small part. What may seem like an unanswered prayer or a painful loss is often a necessary step in his greater plan. One of the best examples of trusting God despite disappointment is the story of Abraham and Sarah. They waited for years to have a child, and when it seemed impossible, God finally fulfilled his promise by giving them Isaac. However, later God tested Abraham's faith by asking him to sacrifice Isaac. This request must have been confusing and heartbreaking for Abraham, yet he obeyed because he trusted that God had a greater plan. At the last moment, God provided a ram as a substitute, showing that he never intended for Isaac to be taken away. He only wanted Abraham to trust him completely. This act of faith turned what could have been a tragedy into a testimony of God's faithfulness. When we choose to trust God, even in the face of rejection and closed doors, we open ourselves to his greater blessings. Sometimes what we think we need is far less than what God actually has in store for us. It may take time to see it, but God always turns our disappointments into something greater. Joseph, who was sold into slavery by his own brothers, could have given up hope. But because he trusted God through every hardship, he was eventually placed in a position of power that allowed him to save an entire nation. What seemed like betrayal and tragedy was actually the path to his destiny. Trusting God when he says no is not about ignoring our pain or pretending that disappointments don't hurt. It is about believing that he is still in control, even when we don't understand. It is about having faith that he is working all things together for our good. When we trust him fully, we begin to see how every closed door leads to something far greater than we ever imagined.